Welcome to Eye on the Illini Live. This is Mike Cagley. We have Brad Sturdy, Kedric Prince here. We are going to do a little bit of a Big Ten preview show, the Big Ten men's basketball preview. We wanted to talk a little bit about that. Of course, folks, Illinois will be playing the winner of Iowa, Ohio State on Thursday, March 13th at 5:30 p.m. on BTN, and Illini Guys will have the Illini Guys live at halftime, and we will also have Eye on the Illini live after the game. So that should be a lot of fun. We are excited by that. When we take a look at this tournament, Brad, anything that jumps out to you when you look at maybe the games on Wednesday and the ones on early Thursday afternoon?
I look at these games. I think that you have a couple of teams. Ohio State has to win that game. They cannot afford to lose to Iowa and get another loss there. They're going to have 15 losses. They need to rack up some wins. And on the other side, I think Rutgers, with their two lottery pick freshmen, it would be really disconcerting to see them not even make the round of to whatever 12 to
Yes.
the Big Ten tournament with two lottery picks who are going to be taken higher than 12 in the draft. So I think those are games that are interesting. USC has a lot of athletes. They're not very good at basketball. Minnesota is, for me, Minnesota's probably a surprise team this year for me. I know they're old, but they've actually had a decent year. That game with Northwestern is a pretty good game. You got Dawson Garcia against Nick Martinelli. That's a fun little matchup between those two guys, two of the leading scorers in the Big Ten.
For me, I agree with Brad. It's really weird. And for those out there listening, I mean, we're friends and colleagues, but we don't talk every day. But Brad and I really do agree a lot. And the reason I'm saying that is because I was really impressed with Minnesota this year, Brad. I was. I think they play hard. Their record doesn't show it, but I think they got better. If they can get some NIL money, I think he's the right guy for that program. I can't say that about all losing programs or programs that may not get into the NCAA tournament. I give Chris Collins credit. He had an injury that set them back as well. So now these teams are fighting to try to get into the big dance, and unless they win it, probably won't happen. But those are teams that I'm really impressed with. The team that's on this side of the bracket that scares me more than anybody, I think it's Iowa. I'm not, no disrespect to Ohio State, USC, or Rutgers. Iowa's a team that I think that's capable of putting up a lot of points on the board. Like Brad mentioned, there's a bunch of athletes at USC, and Rutgers has been a disappointment to me, so to speak. Now, they're freshmen and they're lottery pick, but no one picked them to finish top 5 in the Big Ten. At least I didn't think so. But where they are right now, I wasn't expecting that. But then this is the same team to beat Illinois as well.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you. I like Pikel as coach. I thought he had a rough year. Now, obviously, you need some senior leadership, and letting Cliff go and not paying money for a couple guys to be there and be a steady hand, I thought was a horrible decision, especially when you had such talented freshmen. But gosh darn, we saw with Illinois how tough it is to get guys who are experienced to play well when they have to adapt to a Big Ten and major college basketball schedule. And to me, I just think they totally, I don't either overthought it or underthought it. I don't know what your feelings are, Brad. I know you're a guy who's been in a lot of conversations with coaches about how they put together a roster, and I just thought that was an easy miss.
Yeah, I agree. It's you just look at it and you say, we're going to have these two guys and then figure out everything else, right? It doesn't always work that way. You still have to have 5. And I do think you have limits in NIL budget. And that's where you got to determine. It's almost like the NFL model with if the Josh Allen just got this massive quarterback contract. Now, of course, the NFL cap went up, so it keeps going up, so it helps them. But it's hard to pay your other guys when your quarterback makes a lot of money. Same thing here, I think.
Yep. So you're looking at this matchup in front of Illinois. You've got Iowa, who, let's face it, those guys are blindfolded. They shoot 45%. And then you've got Ohio State, who is a little bit Illinois-like. They've had some incredible evenings out there on the court, and they've had some unincredible evenings out there in the court. How do you guys see this game go?
For me, with Iowa, it's just we can harp about the defense. We've done that a number of times. I think right now the reason Iowa scare me is because it's one of the worst kept secrets in college basketball. It's hard to say if Fran's going to come back or not. Would be my concern, and the kids or his players probably know it. I think they're a dangerous team, and when the ball goes in the basket, you could be one of the worst teams in college basketball or any sport. But when the ball goes in the basket, it changes the game, and Iowa's a team that's very capable of putting the ball in the basket and scoring. And Ohio State's athletic. I think that's a really athletic team, and Diebler's done a really good job with them. From an Illinois standpoint, between the two teams, me personally, I would much rather see Ohio State than Iowa, just because I just think they can score. And it's hard. If they spread you out there and things start clicking, and they went to Nebraska, a place where Illinois lost and won.
Ked, that's just because if they lose to Iowa, you can't go to work the next day.
That's part of it.
No, I think Ohio State's got an interesting team, like you mentioned. They've had some ups and downs. I think Thornton is obviously a really good player. Mobley's been really good as a freshman. But I think for them, it comes down to those other guys. Does Micah Parrish play well? Does Devin Royal play well? And when those guys play well, they have a better chance of winning, obviously. Iowa getting that win in Nebraska was really intriguing to me today. I think they playing with a little bit of I have nothing to lose, as where Ohio State has a lot to lose because they lose this game. Now, I do think that maybe Ohio State has some incentive. They have to win this game. I feel like they are staring at not making the tournament if they lose this game. I don't think either team. I think a healthy Illinois beats either team if they play well. Either way, it works. But I think Iowa is one of those teams. They're both teams that can really get hot offensively. But I think Ohio State may have a little bit more on the defensive side.
Yeah, if you go back and you take a look, they did play this year, and Ohio State won that handily, 82-65. It was obviously a game in Columbus. But the second half is where Iowa really fell apart a little bit against that Buckeye team. And you look, the Buckeyes had a night where Brad talked about it, but basically everybody scored and they had a team effort. And the Buckeyes are pretty tough when that happens. When it becomes Bruce Thornton versus the world is when they tend to struggle a little bit. I really am a little bit nervous about, I think both these teams are a team that are capable of having those good nights. And I do think Ohio State, either one of them comes in with a little bit of a grudge match in terms of wanting to beat the Illini. If you're going to have to pick a winner, who would you guys pick in this game?
I would pick Ohio State. And I just because I think they're a little bit better on the defensive side of the ball. If Iowa had Owen Freeman, I'd pick Iowa, but they don't. So I don't think they have the front court that really allows them to match up. So I would take Ohio State, but I think it'll be a good game. I think there'll be points put up. I think these teams are going to score some points against their relative defenses.
I'm just gonna go with Iowa just because I know what they're playing for. I think Iowa's in the same situation as Indiana. I know we haven't talked about them yet, but they're playing for something, and this could be the last hurrah. And there's always going to be an upset. There's going to be a surprise somewhere, and this is the game where I see the surprise coming.
Yeah, I would have to go with Ohio State in this one, although I think I constantly overpick for this team just because of their athletic ability. And they've left me a couple times in the lurch, but I would go with Ohio State there. Now, let's talk a little briefly about that Northwestern Minnesota matchup. Brad, how are you leaning in that game?
I'm going to take – it's an interesting matchup. I think Minnesota's old. I think they're actually playing decent basketball, but I think Northwestern gets this win just because I think that Chris Collins is – I like Chris Collins. I think he'll have a good game plan. I think Martinelli and Garcia is a great matchup. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'll take Northwestern to win this one. But I'm telling you what, if you're Wisconsin, you drew the lucky charm here with this draw. You get the winner of this game, and then you get UCLA, who I think is probably vastly overrated, personally.
Yep.
It's overseeded in this case. Yeah, I think that's a great draw for Wisconsin.
I agree. I know UCLA got the benefit of a lot of things that went their way. It's tough because I like both of those teams, the way they play. I'd have to go with Minnesota as well, just because I think they don't have any injuries and they're not missing people. And I think there's a chance that the way they've been playing and executing down the stretch, but Northwestern will make it easy because I think they defend really well. And Chris Collins has turned that program around. He's doing it. Johnson's doing it at Minnesota.
Yeah, and finally, as we look at the USC Rutgers game, obviously USC had its one shining moment when they played Illinois and caught Illinois early in the day, and particularly with some issues. Is USC going to be able to find that magic against Rutgers? Will the two young players just put together that one game that gets them into the round of 12? How do you see that game going?
Yeah, USC's an enigma too because they've had some good games. Desmond Claude's been really good at times, but I got to go with I think Rutgers. This is their chance to showcase Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper, kind of showcase what they can do. They have nothing to wait for. This could be their both those guys' last college game. They're almost like seniors right now because they're leaving. Yeah, I think that I think they get this win so they can, and no matter who wins it, Purdue routed both these guys, so I think it doesn't matter. So there's plenty to see who gets sacrificed on Thursday.
I think USC is a better overall team. I just think the lottery picks, that's great. That's good media talk, and it's good for the Big Ten. But I think overall, USC is just a better team. And I'm definitely going to go with USC in this game.
Now, I feel compelled to say, what the heck happened to Nebraska? Just a month ago, we were thinking they were going to be able to make it to the NCAA tournament, let alone not be invited to the Big Ten tournament. That was a collapse and a half. And any thoughts? Just I know I'm springing one here on you, but I just found that team just underachieved. And I think Hoiberg's a pretty good coach, but man, he lost the team or something.
Yeah, they lost 5 in a row. They lost to Penn State, Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio State, and Iowa down the stretch. 3 of those 5 were at home. So it wasn't like they were playing a murderer's row either. Yeah, I think and some of it is they had a couple guys, maybe not 100% or whatever, but it's a collapse. And they went from a NCAA tournament. They were 16-8, looked like 17-9, looked like an NCAA tournament team. And then all of a sudden they lose 5 in a row. Now they're like 17-14, and they don't look like they were even going in today, they were first 4 out. Now I don't even think they're there. So I don't think they even have a shot to make it.
I don't either. And that's too bad because Fred is a great coach and he's done a tremendous job. And I watched the game today. They just can't get off the snide. They got in the tournament last year, which was great. Somebody had to lose, but I didn't see that coming because they were playing good basketball. And people were afraid of them because they had the home court advantage. They played well at home. And I'm a big fan of his. I think he's a classy coach, and he's one of the guys that I know that's really genuine and who does things right. I know he's at unfortunately, a football school where a lot of the money goes to the football program. But if they could ever, and they've done a good job with the arena there, but if they could ever invest money in basketball the way they're doing football program and sell it out the way they do their football program, Fred's going to do some good things there because he runs good stuff and his teams are well prepared.
Or volleyball.
Oh, yeah. Silly me. You're right.
Yeah, volleyball. Volleyball drives me as football, I think, now. It's crazy. I don't think I think Fred's. I don't think he's going anywhere. There's a question about is he on the hot seat? I don't think he is. I think it. No. But if they have another bad year, I think that it's going to be he could be gone.
Yeah, I will say that at a place where boosters are donating money, the finish that they had this year leaves a bad taste in boosters' mouths, and I don't think you can afford to do that twice in a row. Looking at the games on Thursday, of course.
Hey, here's a question for you. Has Fred Hoiberg been worse than Tim Miles at Nebraska?
I'd
have to go take them apart and take a look at that just from a record standpoint.
I mean, Hoiberg's made one NCAA tournament last year. But he started off struggle bus, and then Miles had them winning his last 2 years, 22 wins, 13-5 in the Big Ten, but didn't make the tournament. And then 19 and 17 even the next year. Man, I don't know.
They have a hard time trying to fire Fred. They really. I think firing him would be tough because he's an attractive name, and I thought Tim was great. I liked him. I thought he was a good coach, but some of these schools, and I don't want to, I'm just switching on Nebraska, but some of these schools, I don't want to say they need to understand because that's not fair for me to say. They're not going to be in the upper echelon with the Big Ten, with schools in the Big Ten in basketball. It could happen. You get the right guy in there, because I tell you, Indiana, the one guy I don't want Indiana to get, I'm not going to say his name, but there's been talk that you guys have all seen, Chris Beard. But anyway, I think he's tough. But if you get a guy like that in the right program, they're going to do well. They just are. And but some teams are just not going to compete. Michigan State and Purdue and Illinois, they've been there. And so Michigan's done, and they've done it well in the past, but they hired a great coach and now they're back. But somebody's going to lose. Not all 18 teams and it's not going to go 500. So somebody's going to be at the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, I was one who really couldn't understand why they fired Tim Miles, to be honest with you. I thought he had done, for the school that he was at, I thought he had done a good job there. That goes back to that old adage, and Illinois has lived this one a lot. If you're going to fire a guy, you better have somebody who's better than him when you replace him. And I know that Hoiberg doesn't get a lot of respect, and before him, neither did Miles.
Yeah.
But there's a reason why Nebraska is not a power, is because nobody wants to live in the middle of a cornfield and play basketball. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think
100 years of it.
It's just not the priority.
Right.
They're not going to spend their NIL money. They're going to spend it on football and volleyball, and there's a limited amount. But they have enough to be more. They shouldn't have lost 5 games in a row to end the season, regardless of coaching. And I do think Hoiberg was a good hire from a name standpoint. He was a bigger name, and coming from Iowa State when before he went and tried his fair in the NBA. But yeah, I do think, I think he's got to win next year though. They got to be running out of patience there.
Yeah, and I do think Iowa State coaches should just be prevented from taking NBA jobs with the Bulls, but that's just me. But there's no way I could be the third Iowa State coach to go do that.
The next hire is going to be TJ Otzelberger now, right?
Yeah, exactly. That would. And TJ could show the guns off in the NBA. I'm sure the players would be impressed by that act.
Definitely.
That act would be stale on literally midway through day one. Looking at Thursday, Indiana and Oregon is an intriguing matchup because Oregon's a team, I guess, that I'm not impressed with them. And Indiana, I just thought their roster was really good for 1984, but not so good for a modern day basketball team. How do you handicap this game, Brad?
That's intriguing. They just played last week, right?
Yep.
So they played out on the left coast. This is Oregon got the win in a competitive game at home against Indiana. But Indiana then comes home, beats Ohio State. They've won 4 of 5 right now. They've won 5 of 7, including wins over Michigan State, Purdue, and Ohio State. So Indiana's playing pretty well since that 5-game skid in the middle, or that time when they lost 7 of 8. So they're actually doing okay. So I like Indiana. I think they win. They're in Indianapolis too, so it's like a home game. So I think they get this win over Oregon. Oregon is they're an enigma team. Someday they look great for stretches and then just look terrible for stretches too. But I think Indiana gets this win, and I think that sets up a tough matchup for Michigan State. But Izzo's probably locked up a 2 seed already. Does he care? They won the Big Ten. They locked up a 2 seed.
Oh, I think he does. I think he does.
I think they do, but I think they're ready to get to I think that resting for the tournament might be better for them than, or maybe not. They play like 400 guys. Who knows? Maybe the one team that doesn't need rest.
Right.
If it wasn't in Indianapolis, I would have to go Oregon. I think they're better coached. That plays a big part of it for me. I think Oregon is a dangerous team. But maybe the home court advantage gives Indiana that nod. I just picked I don't know. That's a tough one. You know what? I'm going to be different. I'm going to go Oregon just because I just think they're athletic enough and they're dangerous enough and they beat some good teams and they're, again, coaching matters to me. And I'm not saying that Mike Woodson's a horrible coach. I'm not saying that's Indiana fans easy with the.
He is. I will, kid. He's not good. Right.
Thanks, man, because I'm sick of that. I'm sick of that smoke. But I would like Oregon, even though it's a home game. And in Indiana, it's going to be good for them because now they can go out. If they get beat, they can start their coaching search for real.
Either that or Woodson can announce before the game that he's going to officially be gone and try to get some mileage out of that because it seems to be working right now. So maybe he just needs to announce that before every game that
Yep.
he's gone at the end of the season and see if that pushes him through from a motivational standpoint. Now, Brad, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say you are going to pick Wisconsin over the Northwestern Minnesota winner.
Yeah, I think I will. I think Wisconsin that's a good draw for them. I'm not a huge. I think Wisconsin is okay. I like them. I think they're a good team. I'm not sure they're quite as good as they appear. I don't know if they've lost 3 of 5 now, including home losses to Penn State and Oregon. And Wisconsin's lost at the last day of the season. That's like a bad day. Remember a couple years ago they lost at home to was it Nebraska? Beat them at Kohl Center, so Illinois could win the Big Ten title then over Iowa. So the last day of the season is not good for Nebraska or Wisconsin, evidently. But they lose at home to Penn State. So I don't know. I think that they go if Tanger's playing really well, and he had played really well for a stretch, but he's come back down to like earth. He's still good. He was 2 of 13 from the floor against Penn State. He was 3 of 13 against Michigan State. So he's had some kind of clunkers here lately, coming off that run where he just lit it up for about a few weeks there, including 22, 32, and 31 against Iowa, Purdue, and Illinois. So started to maybe come back to earth. Maybe people are getting the scout out on him a little bit, but yeah, I just don't know that they have a ton of depth, and they've had some. I don't know. I think also the other part about them is maybe Klesmit not playing is a bigger factor than we think. They've lost 2 of 3, and since he went out, and with him out, that does make a difference, I think.
I think Wisconsin. If I look at the entire conference, there are 2 teams that, to me, from a national standpoint, that's underrated, under the radar. Is Wisconsin and Maryland. I think this is a no-brainer. I think Wisconsin's a better team. I would give Greg Gard credit. Wisconsin used to be the most boring team to watch in the Big Ten. Now they've modernized their basketball, and they shoot the three. And the guys, they're running the swing offense, but not like they did. There's a lot of deviations off of it. So I like Wisconsin. I'm not going to sit and spend a lot of time with this one because I do think they're an underrated team. And if they get hot, look out.
Yeah, and I do think Tanjay, all he needs is a game or two to heat up. He reminds me of Davis because physically he's a tough competitor. He's physically very talented, and at the college level, through sheer strength of will, he can get involved in a lot of things and get to the ball and make things happen. I think probably he'd have the same challenges in the NBA that Davis had as well. Now Illinois, I got to feel like most Illinois fans feel pretty good about the matchup, either Ohio State or Iowa. Maybe you guys could just reframe that for us real quick.
Yeah, I think they're both good matchups. I think they're matchups where Illinois should be able to score against either one of those teams, and I think that Illinois is getting healthy. I think getting more guys, being able to play the 8 guys they're playing, and then you throw in if Merez can come back and give them just limited minutes up front, just a few minutes. I think that's huge going into these games, and it gets him ready for the NCAA tournament as well. But yeah, I like Illinois here. I think that you're going to see them. This team that tends to like those. You go back and look at like the neutral site games they played early when they played like that Arkansas game on Thanksgiving Day, and how much they loved that kind of media attention. I think you're going to see that a little bit. They want to showcase a little bit, and they're starting to get together. Their guard play has been fantastic over the last 3 games. We're starting to see Will Riley as that third guard and Trey White playing the 4. Wait, who said that? Who was saying that back then? I can't remember. Who said that. Oh, but anyway, yeah, you get my point. So
I'm superstitious. A lot of people are, and this game, the one thing I didn't want Illinois to be a 7 seed because the women, they were a 7 seed and got beat. And I know it's a different game. I know anything's possible. Illinois is better, I think, than both of those teams that they have an opportunity to face. I just do not want to see an upset here. I want to see the Illinois team that, my personal opinion, not so much against Purdue, that went to Ann Arbor and won. If you get the Illinois team that went to Ann Arbor and won and win, look out.
Yeah. And then so we go down and look at Purdue against either USC or Rutgers. I'm gonna go out on a little bit of a ledge here because again, USC, there was so much variance in what they did this year as a from game to game. But my thought process is if the right USC team showed up against Purdue, they could give Purdue a decent game. But when you look at the schedule and you look what USC has accomplished this year, I just don't think there's a very high chance of that happening.
I would agree with you. I look at this and I say, look at USC, and they have not been, when they travel, outside of winning at Illinois and Nebraska, they beat Washington, Penn State, Michigan State, and Iowa at home. So, yeah, they finished 7-13. I think they've struggled when they come to this direction. So I think they're going to struggle in this one too. And I think Purdue gets that done if it's USC. I think Rutgers is the team that you just never know. They do have the talent, but I don't see it. I don't think anybody's beating Purdue, especially in Indianapolis. I don't think they're beating Purdue because that's like a home game for Purdue too. Like literally, those dudes are 20 minutes, 30 minutes from the field house, and it's going to be like a home game for them. And then they also will have great fan support. And I think they've got the Underwood compared them to the Utah Jazz. And that's so true with Smith and Kaufman-Renn and then Lawyer. And I don't think they can match up with Kaufman-Renn inside. So I think Purdue will win that.
I think they're a dangerous team. Purdue, and from an Illinois standpoint, we've seen how dominant they can be. When they're playing, they're great. I just don't see anybody, which I've not seen all season, stop Kaufman-Renn. The Big Ten Player of the Year is probably going to be Smith, and I just think they're a really good team. And to see Illinois and Purdue not get a double bye is it's a cultural shock to me. I'm not used to seeing it because they've done well. So I expect both of these teams to have those little private conversations from staff to team that no one will know about. This is unfamiliar territory with both of those programs. So I think you're going to see a really inspired performance from Illinois because we knew what they were supposed to be, and I think you're going to get the same thing from Purdue. Painter's just a classy guy, just a classy coach, and he's intelligent. And I think the stuff that he runs, the same with Illinois, if I look at just from an X's and O's standpoints, Illinois' offense and Purdue, and I have to include Michigan State, even though I'm sour on them a little bit, those offenses are tough to stop.
Yeah, and Brad, I got a question for you and I'll be interested to see what you think when you get over there, but Indianapolis used to be the territory of Indiana alone. Is the last decade with Indiana struggling and Purdue doing so well? Is Indianapolis now Purdue territory? How does that split in that area?
No, I think it's still Indiana territory. Purdue has just a great following though there as well. I think people have become interested in Purdue basketball, but they always have. They are so loyal there in West Lafayette. You go to games there. You've been there, Mike. You've been to Mackey, and it's nuts. Those people are so passionate. They have such tradition for a program that probably has been really good in the Big Ten, but maybe hasn't won nationally as much. So I don't know. I think it'll be good though. They'll bring enough fans. They'll fill out their section, and they'll have a lot of guys there scalping tickets from other sections as well. So I think Purdue will do well in pulling in fans here because they're good too. I think when you're good, your fans travel better.
Yeah, well, I was just curious because I just see Indiana under Bob Knight always was the big brother, and even as good as Purdue was under Katie, they were the little brother. And it seems like little brother grew up and went away to college and beat the tar out of big brother when they got home the last 10 years. Now let's go into at least a little bit. We're going to work through the tournament here and see what we think is going to happen. Sounds like the consensus was Oregon going up against Michigan State. Do you guys see the Spartans winning one, or is this going to be another one of those years where we put our team out there if we lose? How do you see that going?
I picked Indiana to beat Oregon, so I think Indiana and Michigan State. Indiana already won at East Lansing, so this game I think is interesting. I think Michigan State's playing really right now, though, so I do think they'll win this. But I think Indiana will give them fits in this game. I think the Spartans get to the Big Ten title game. I think it's them and Wisconsin in one side of that semifinal.
I can't believe I'm going to say this. Michigan State is impressive to me. This was a team that when you look back during the Thanksgiving and holiday season, they couldn't put in the ocean. They are probably the best team in the conference, and I don't know if they have a guy on first team all Big Ten, to be honest with you. They look really good right now. Everything they defend, they rebound, they run the floor, they run their sets, and they make timely threes. If they play in the Big Ten tournament the way they have the last 4 or 5 games, good luck, because this is one of Tom Izzo's best coaching jobs in a long time. This team is dangerous to me. I don't care if it's Indiana, Oregon, or Wisconsin. On the neutral side, the way Tom has this group playing, I think it's Michigan State all the way.
Okay, Cad, we got a question for you. Will DGL be a factor in Indy?
DGL needs to be on the court to be a factor. He can be a cheerleader on the sideline. I think his last few games he's struggled, and that's not a knock. And I know a lot of people wanted to see him play. People were upset about it because he missed a couple shots, and I think last game he only had 10 minutes. Coach Underwood is willing to play the kid, and I know he will play him, but he has to be on the court to be effective, because I know giving Kylan Boswell some minutes and giving KJ some minutes would be great, but just not during TV timeouts. You don't want to be that TV timeout guy where the 12-minute media time comes out in 13 minutes, you're going to go in the game, and then you're going to be that guy, and then when you come back after the TV timeout, you're back on the bench. He could be, because he's in Indiana, and if you look on his Twitter, I call it Twitter, most people call it X, but if you look on his Twitter, he had a field day beat Purdue, and he barely played. So there's some pride there, Nathan, with this kid. He thrives on beating Indiana and Purdue playing at Illinois. So hopefully he can be, and hopefully he can get on the court and be effective.
I think that, for me, I think DGL can be a factor, especially if you start playing more and more games. But the big factor is that KJ and Boswell and Will Riley have been the 3 guards the past few games, and they are playing at a high level. Boswell's been playing at an elite level, and so has Will Riley. He's been scoring the ball extremely well. So I think that's why it's more about what other guys have done than what he has done. I know it's hard. Ked mentioned it right there. It's hard to go in and play like 2 minutes. But you saw the other day that they will change, because remember they put in Humrickhouse for one of the timeouts there, the under 8, right before 8 minutes. And then he just left him in because he was playing well, and Ivasic really struggled. So they left Ivasic on the bench for like a long stretch. Well, it's like, okay, Ben's doing a better job. So I think that can happen too. So if DGL does get hot, he is an X factor. When they struggle on offense, he's a guy who can come in and get buckets right away and at least get a good shot off. He can, because he's so athletic. But
yeah, and as we go through this, I think the Wisconsin seems to be the universal pick to play UCLA, and I think from what you guys are telling me, UCLA might be in a bit of trouble here.
yeah, I like Wisconsin to win that game. I think UCLA's good, don't get me wrong, but I just think that now they do have the one thing. I feel like that, and I could be wrong, I feel like that Kobe Johnson is a guy who can probably match up about as well with Tanjay as anybody, just with his length and athleticism that he can put on him. But Tanjay is so strong. But my personal take is that I think that they win. I think that Wisconsin wins this game and gets to the semifinals.
I picked Wisconsin too, Mike, and I don't want to be a quote-unquote bracket buster here, but Jay put a comment on the board, and I'm really curious to know. I'm really curious to hear what Brad Sturdy thinks and what you think, because truthfully, I agree with Jay. When I look at Oregon, not just those Purdue and some of these other schools that are ahead of Illinois, I'm just curious to know what you guys think, because I think that question that Jay just posted is worth mentioning, because I'm just baffled by what the Illinois strength of schedule and the injuries and how they're playing down the stretch. And I think Purdue lost 4 or 5 or something like that. Help me understand that. I'm not trying to be a bracket buster, but I'm really curious to know what you guys think about that.
I'll take that one. I think Purdue's just ahead just because of the quality of wins that they have. Not the number of quad 1 wins necessarily, or quad 1 and 2, but beating a team like Alabama. If Illinois had beaten Tennessee, I think that they're at the same level. Now, I don't think Illinois is a 7 at the moment. I think they're going to they're a 6 at the moment. I don't think they're as slow as people think. I think the team that they're going to pass some people if they win 2 games this week, and they're going to be up in that 6, and they have a chance to be a 5. I think that's their apex. I also think I don't think Purdue's going above a 4. They're 4-5. They're one of the last 4s. But the problem is, all these teams are a jumbled mess. So you could basically, you look at these teams from Purdue to Maryland. I think Maryland should be ahead of Purdue personally, but Purdue, Arizona, Clemson. Where does Clemson's got that one good win? Where's Michigan, Oregon, Missouri, Ole Miss, Louisville, Marquette, UCLA, Illinois, BYU, Memphis. Look at all these teams. St. Mary's. They're all just, you could put any of those teams, I think, in that 4 to 7 range, and you wouldn't be wrong. And I don't think you can go wrong there. And I think there's just a clear separation above them. But those teams then, I think, just fit somewhere in that mix, and you could just throw them in a hat. So I don't think there's a huge difference when you actually look at them. But I do think one of them's going to end up, one of those teams in that group I just mentioned is going to be a 4, and one of them's going to be a 7. And that's the way it's going to shake out.
And I do think Nathan had an interesting comment. Michigan State played the easier teams early in the schedule, which
I'm not touching that one.
but it may be a valuable thing in this era of the transfer portal as teams are still gelling. If you get some teams early on and you can get some victories before they come together, it's never bad to have your team confident and somebody else's team not confident.
Yeah,
I think
I would agree with that. The other thing about them is they didn't play, Michigan State didn't play the normal non-conference gauntlet they normally play this year. You notice they played Kansas, who turns out they're okay, but Kansas like an 8 seed. They played Memphis and lost. They beat North Carolina, who probably won't make the tournament, although they're a big name. That's it. That's their high major. Colorado. Does that count? I don't know. Is that a high major? I don't know. They're not
if you say the word Deion Sanders, it counts.
Oh, football, yeah. So they didn't play the normal gauntlet they normally play. So there's some argument there. They did open early and they lost to Kansas. They lost to Memphis, but the win against North Carolina, since that time, they've been cruising. I think they got a lot of confidence, and they were able to get a lot of guys minutes in a lot of those games and find roles for players. They won all those games by a lot too. And so then you come through and you were able to grind it out. And they went through a little struggle in the middle, just like everybody does starting February. And then, boom, now they're clicking, and they've been cruising since then.
And stayed healthy.
That helps. Yep. And the one thing they have going for them, too, is there's no difference. Does it matter? Seriously, I think Jaden Akins is important. Trey Holloman, they're all important, but they just throw guys out there. And this guy's playing good today. This guy sucks today. We'll just put him in. Does it matter whether it's Cooper or Zapala or Jackson Kohler or whatever? They just throw guys out. Xavier Booker. I mean, just throw guys out there and just let them run and see what happens. If they don't play well, then we take them out and we don't put them back in. It's a style that
seems like. Doesn't it seem like Izzo is totally? He does not worry about any NIL commitments in terms of playing time or dollars.
Not at all.
He just plays the guys he wants to play, which means if you're not playing very well, you got to watch the game from a front row seat.
Yeah, no question. And what's funny is we always talk about teams that play like old school style. They don't shoot a bunch of threes.
Yep.
But yet they're really, and they don't shoot really well from 3 either, so it makes sense. But they're really good. They play the same style they've always played, and they attack the glass, they rebound, they defend, they don't give up threes, they pressure you, put pressure on the ball, they take away things. Teams are shooting 26% from 3 against them in Big Ten play. So it's really, they're good, and they just do things a certain way, and he doesn't care what people say because he's Tom Izzo, and he's won a national title. He's been coaching since the beginning of time. So there's no, it's been forever.
Now, before we talk about the Illinois-Maryland game, we're going to listen to an encouraging word or two from our friends at Busey Bank.
This is the run my own business dream. This is the college is paid for dream. This is the retire early dream. This is Busey, where your dreams and possibilities become moments through trusted guidance and expertise, through lifelong relationships. Because we're here to help you achieve the life you've always envisioned.
Well, so there we are. Next time, I think Busey's going to get Ked in his mansion. He'll be the guy that they're helping at home.
No kidding.
Trying to decide, do I buy a jet or do I buy a fleet of electric cars?
Oh, so we got that many more subscribers, huh?
Yeah. At 27 cents a day, you see the scroll going down, the crawl going down below. Got to get that. So now we go to probably what many felt was the worst matchup in the Big Ten for Illinois from a roster standpoint. Illinois takes on Maryland, brutal interior team. We don't know yet if Morez is going to play. How do you see that game going, gentlemen?
I think that it'll be better than last time. I think this Illinois team's tougher. They're better. They're going to do a better job, I think. But they can't just let Julian Reese play in the post and expect to win this game. It's just not going to work. You hope they figure it out. But at the same time, if they keep playing the same style against Maryland, they're going to get beat. But I do think Maryland is beatable if they do things the right way. You have to make those guys that aren't great shooters shoot the ball. You can't just let Reese get your guys in foul trouble, pound it down in the paint. You can't let Queen get out in transition, running the floor, dunking with turnovers. Last time they played Maryland, they had 16 turnovers. KJ had 7. That can't happen. I think they've been better taking care of the ball. So this is a great opportunity for them to show how they've grown as a team heading into this. And if they get to this game, I think Illinois has a great opportunity. I think Maryland's pretty good. I really think they're pretty good. So it's going to be a tough matchup for Illinois.
As the IlliniGuys staff, this was the one matchup that I think 3 out of the 4 of us didn't want to see. We just did not want to see this matchup. The reason why I didn't want to see it is because Maryland has owned Illinois. Sorry, Illini fans, you know what? Go look at the record books, and they just have. I think the key to this game, if Illinois has any chance of winning, they cannot let Mr. Reese just receive the ball in the post and score 80 points. Illinois, I know most of the people have seen this, they need more res instead of less res, because if he plays, he's going to give them a chance. He was on an island by himself last time. If Busey, I don't think he played that game. So now if you get both guys available and they can play, I think that helps. But to me, this is going to come down to coaching. Illinois typically doesn't double team the post. I know last year, Brad, Sturdy and I, we talked multiple times when they went last year, maybe 2 years ago, when they went to Maryland and won. They made a lot of coaching adjustments. You cannot. He's tough, and it's not just against Illinois. I'm just concerned because they've owned Illinois. It's a neutral site, and if there is one team or 2 teams in this entire bracket, if you're an Illinois fan, that you want a chance to redeem yourself, Maryland is one and Michigan State's the other. You're going to have a chance at Maryland. At least you should have a chance at Maryland, we should say. Coaching is going to matter. And at the end of the day, like Brad Underwood said Friday night when they beat Purdue, they're making shots. When they make shots, Maryland's going to have to try to defend Illinois, because now if you get Morez out there, even just from his rebounding and defense standpoint, I don't care if he scores a bucket. He can defend and rebound. That's going to give a Beast an opportunity to be crafty and throw those little backdoor passes and screen passes to Boswell and Trey White and Will Riley. Morez, if he's able to play, this is huge for Illinois, but if not, and they don't make coaching adjustments, I don't see Illinois winning. Sorry.
Well, someone over here said I think they were joking, put Boswell on Reese, but I think you put Boswell on Queen, because Queen doesn't really post, and so then you don't have to. If you do need to double, you can double, and Reese doesn't space the floor. You can leave a guy in the paint then on Reese, and then you just have to post trap him at least, or at least show something.
Show it.
To not let him just work down there and score, because it's just too difficult for Illinois. You saw that Reese's Trakoff and Wren just abused Illinois inside, and Reese's does the same type of thing. So this is a similar matchup. And once you saw them start blitzing Trakoff and Wren at the end, and what happened? He had to kick it out to guys. They missed shots. They pressured. They got them in rotations, but those guys had to rush shots, and sometimes they're going to make them, but I'll take my chances with those guys as opposed to letting Reese just go to work on the block.
But they did double down a little bit under the 2-3 minute mark, which Will Riley had.
That's what I said. That's what I mean. They did. That's why they went on a 13-1 run.
Yeah, and that's what I meant when I'm coaching. I know they're going to do something different. There's no way I would bet anything that they're going to do something different, whether it's that or matchups. And I do. I know Paul mentioned on Reese on Boswell on Reese, but I like what you said, Brad, a Queen, because I think he's a tough matchup. And Kylan is just – he'll guard anybody. His confidence level is an all-time high where he can get out and defend. And I think him playing such good defense made his offense better.
And that happens. We see that happen so much. Now, the next game, Purdue against Michigan. I got to be honest, the 2 teams split this year. Very close game at Michigan and a blowout at Purdue. Michigan isn't playing very well. I would not be surprised to see Purdue win this by 15-20. Brad?
I would agree with you, which means I should probably pick Michigan. So no, I think that Michigan's
Historically
reeling, man.
speaking, you're correct.
Michigan's on the struggle bus. They are really playing poorly. I think they've been exposed a little bit. Danny Wolf looks dead-legged right now. He does not look like he's got the same. He never was like an explosive guy, but he certainly doesn't look like the same guy that he was. They've fallen. They're 28th in Ken Palm. They've lost 3 in a row, 4 out of 6. And I get they've lost to Illinois, Maryland, Michigan State, who are 3 all in the top 20 on Ken Palm. And it isn't like they've lost to bad teams. But at the same time, they've been getting – Illinois beat them by 20. Michigan State beat them by 17 and 13. They're getting run out of the gym in some of these games. And so this is not a – Purdue beat them by 27 earlier in the year. So this is not a team that looks like it's ready to make a run to me, despite the fact – you want to hear the craziest part about Michigan? They finished 14-6 in conference play, right? In offensive efficiency in conference play, they were 14th out of 18 teams. 14th out of 18 teams in offensive efficiency. That's bad. That's not good. And then you look at a team like Illinois finished 7th, right? But if you look at Illinois, I think they're 4th and 4th or something like that in conference play. So 3rd in offense, 4th in defense in efficiency. But they finished 7th in the league. That just shows you the conference strength of schedule does make a difference.
I'm going to go with Michigan. I think they've been reeling. They've been going down the rabbit's hole, and they've been struggling. They struggled today, but you're right. I think that they go as Wolf goes. I don't know if he's going to get it kicked in during the Big Ten tournament. The reason I'm going to go with them because I think they can match up with Purdue inside. I think it'll be tougher for Purdue and on a neutral court. And I think Michigan, you can just see it. I think they've been beat up. This is one of these teams where they're going to say, you know what, we started off great. And Brad just mentioned who they ended the season with. Now it's a new season. And if I'm coaching them 0-0, so all what happened the last 3 or 4 games out of the window, I think they're tired too. I think if I remember correctly, they had the most games of anybody in the conference in the last 2 weeks at the end of the season. So I think fatigue is probably an issue. I'm sure they could use a couple of days rest. I'm sure they would have preferred to play yesterday or Saturday instead of Sunday. But I think Michigan is still a dangerous team. And no disrespect to Purdue, but I just think they match up well with them inside.
So let's wrap up this. Then we have Michigan State going up against what you guys feel probability being our friends at, I think you mean Michigan State against Wisconsin. Any thoughts on this matchup or who you expect to come out of the top there?
I think Michigan State wins that one. I just think that they're playing well right now, and it's easy to say that. But I'll be honest with you, I think, and this is crazy maybe, but I think Indiana is a tougher matchup for Michigan State than Wisconsin is. That's my personal take. But I think Michigan State will beat Wisconsin if they play.
I do. I think you watch what they did to Illinois. They just look better than what they did to Michigan twice. They just look better right now. They seem more confident. It's not about talent and lottery picks. Just looking at the overall team, I saw a couple of places today. They were talking about Michigan State possibly being a number 1 seed if they win the Big Ten tournament. They're playing well, and you have to tip your hat to them. I'm not going to be selfish and think, oh yeah, they don't deserve it. They're playing as good as anybody in college basketball right now.
And then we look at potentially the Illinois-Maryland winner going up against what we seem to think is Purdue. What do you think is going to happen in that game?
Yeah, I think Maryland's intriguing to me. I think Maryland is a team that I think if Illinois beats them, I think they will beat either Michigan or Purdue in that second game. But I think Maryland will I think whoever wins the Illinois-Maryland game wins that semifinal game. That's my take. Right? Now, I would say Maryland's what has Maryland won? Like, it's crazy. Like, they're 11-2 in their last 13 and 13-3 in their last 16 games. They're playing at a really high level. Their only loss, they've beaten Illinois at Illinois. They've beaten Wisconsin. Good win at Michigan.
At Indiana, I think.
Yeah, at Indiana. Playing pretty well right now. I don't know. They're intriguing. I think that they're playing pretty well. They've clicked. So you've seen them march up. They're really good defensively, and I think that's why they're second best defensive team in the Big Ten, and I think that's showed out as this conference season's played on.
I'm not going to just repeat this just to be saying it for the sake of time. I concur with what he just said. Same thing. We know Maryland, and we saw what they've done, and We've talked about how dangerous they are. I have to go with them. They just look really, and the only thing with them, I will say this, which we have mentioned, they don't have a lot of depth. So if you can get to their bench, somehow you get to their bench, you may have a chance.
Yep.
Yeah, where's Coleman Hawkins to lure their bench into all sorts of problems? So who's going to win the Big Ten title then, guys?
I'm going to take. I think Maryland wins it in the upset. That's my pick.
My two teams that I said that I could care less what happens to right now, Michigan and Maryland. Maryland's going to give them a run, but Michigan State to me they're on a different level. I'm tipping my hat to them. They are clearly better, and I do think Maryland, honestly, right now today is the second best team in the Big Ten right now. I don't care where they finish, whatnot. I can barely see the seedings on this little board here, but truthfully, Michigan State's just different.
Yeah, the one thing I will add is that Michigan State, with their depth, playing 3 games in 3 days, that might help them because they play guys limited minutes. That may be a good thing for them. So this might be a scenario where it fits. Maybe, but they could also lose to Indiana, and then we're saying that depth didn't help them. Who knows?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing how whether you win or lose makes you a stupid or a smart coach.
Yeah,
when sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. So any final thoughts then going into the tournament here? One thing I will say is on each of these games, we will have Ked and I will be doing halftime live. So we'll be on right at the half, and then we will be on probably 20 minutes after the end of each game, and then we will be joined by Brad after Brad gets done with the media scrum at the post game. And so we're looking forward to an exciting Big Ten tournament. I do think that if Illinois were to get all the way towards the title, I think, or at least get into Saturday, that makes the case for them, especially defeating Maryland, would make the case that those injuries and the illnesses were not just an excuse, but they were reality that caused this team to hit a few bumps in the road that they may not have hit under other circumstances.
I totally agree, Mike. I would say this. I think if Illinois gets to that Saturday, I think they're going to be the talk of the nation. And because they're going to say, oh, wait, they're going to be on national TV on Saturday on CBS. And they're going to be talking about how this team has now won 5 in a row, including wins over Purdue, wins at Michigan, wins over Maryland, win over. And they're going to be like slobbering over them because that's what they're paid to do. And from a national standpoint, they're going to say they lost all those games when everybody was sick and injured. But look at what they were before, and now look at where they are when they're whole. And then you put those two things together, and they're like a 2 or 3 seed when you just look at those models, right? When you just look at the end, if they get to Saturday. And so that's where I think they're going to be like, they will get so much notoriety. And then there'll be a hot pick for everybody to pick and to win like in the tournament, and then they'll lose. So no, that's my history of Illini fandom coming out, right? So you get that. So no, I do think that's for the program and for that it could really be a huge thing.
I've stayed away from this part, because I don't want people to think I'm a homer. But truthfully, if you see the Illinois, the way they played against Oregon, the way they played against Michigan and Ann Arbor, and the way they played Purdue, Illinois could win this entire thing. I've not said that Illinois is the one team, and I would probably say Maryland, that I think that could give Michigan State a run for their money if they're playing well, because they are good enough to do it. And you also have to remember when they went to East Lansing, what they lose by 2 points. We know KJ he fouled as soon as he walked off the airplane, and Visic was sick because he missed the game right before, and I think Will Riley was sick even though he played well. I just think if they are playing well and they're executing their offense, and Mike, you and I have said a number of podcasts, if the big fellas making threes, Illinois can beat anybody in this entire bracket.
Now, one caveat I'd like to ask you, Ked, can Illinois do that? Can they perform at that level if Morez Johnson is not available for the Big Ten tournament?
Yes, and I'm going to tell you why. You just saw it against Purdue last Friday. You did. And he helps. He adds another dimension. And you know what? And I have been one of the most how do I say this? I've not been really kind about Ben Humrichhouse's performances offensively, but he did a really good job defensively against Kaufman Wren last week. So he's coming of age. So he is not your typical backup. He's not Morez Johnson, but they do need him. And I said that earlier in this broadcast. You need Morez Johnson, even if it's just rebounding and playing defense, if anything else, because Illinois is a great rebounding team. If he gets you offense, I think that's just icing on the cake. And the one thing about this, fans, if you're listening to this, he fractured his left wrist, not his right one. It shouldn't affect his shooting ability. He wasn't a great free throw shooter, but he was getting a lot better at it. I think that they need the bench. They need Drayvon Gibbs-Lawhorn to be who he was about a month ago, the way he played up in Madison, Wisconsin. This team is dangerous. It really is. But I would, if you were asking me my birthday, which is in July, if I had a birthday wish, I would love to see Illinois beat Maryland and beat Michigan State. And whatever happens after that, it's going to be a hell of a birthday or summer for me, because that's what I want to see happen.
If that's the case, then it has to happen. And of course, as Ked's health gets better, so do the Illini. So we're happy to see Ked feeling better. And
I'm getting close. I'm close.
But folks, if you enjoyed this, obviously go to IlliniGuys.com. You can get a lot of information on the Illini. We also do a pretty good job, I'll say, on the Big Ten. And we enjoy talking about sports, having a good time, keeping it away from politics. So if you need something to get away from all the crap out there and you just want to have a fun and maybe smile a little bit, join IlliniGuys.com. That's where you can, on top of everything else, get to talk with Ked and Brad and Larry and Matt and ask questions and to better understand what they're talking about and clarify.
I will say this: when we go to these Big Ten and NCAA tournaments, we get a chance to talk to a lot more like in person. You get a lot of little scuttlebutt that's going on behind the scenes. Talk to parents, talk to about where they're at. Agents will be there. It's always a good time. So we'll have some little tidbits out on the message board as well. So make sure you follow along for that.
Yeah, and also there's always recruiting nuggets that these two will drop into the game room, which is where Illini fans do real live watching of the game together, where we actually see gnashing of teeth like you read about in the Bible, even over things like a turnover.
Free throw. A missed layup.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. But it is a lot of fun. So if you want to join there, we love that. That helps us pay for the cost of Brad to go to tournaments and us to have this type of coverage. We really love that. And as DS says, don't die, kid.
I'm trying, baby.
And then the game room is not for the faint-hearted, which I will tell you. My dad logged into there one time. He's okay. The comments are too fast to read and watch the game, and man, those people get mad. Dad, it's not really meant for those people over 80.
It's better that they're venting there than they're like beating their wives or dogs. So we
good point.
Or drinking heavily.
So maybe
they're drinking heavily too. I don't know.
We're providing a service to the community. Yet another thing that
Illini Guys gives you.
Well, with that, folks, we will be back. I would encourage you take a look at Brad's article today. He talks a little bit about the team growing up. And if you want to look at an article, I think that a column that I put out there, I think the next 5 years are the 5 most important years in the history of Illini athletics. You want to know why? Go to the front page of IlliniGuys.com, click on it, take a read. I really believe what's going on in the ACC is more than enough reason for Brett Bielema and Josh Whitman to continue what they have done so diligently to bring this football program up into a program that the Illini fandom can be proud of. And now it's critical to win games and get ratings. The game is a-changing, folks, on a daily basis. So tune in to get that. Until Thursday, go Illini.